I stared at the IV drip in my arm, then back at my phone screen. My sister Emma was on stage in a sequined leotard, executing a perfect pirouette while 200 people applauded. The video had been posted 20 minutes ago. I refreshed my messages. Nothing. The nurse had told me I was lucky. Another hour and your appendix would have burst, she'd said, adjusting my morphine drip. Good thing you made it when you did. I'd made it because I'd called an Uber with shaking hands, hunched over in the back seat while the driver asked 3 times if I needed him to pull over. I'd stumbled into the ER alone, vomited twice in the waiting room, and woken up after emergency surgery to a text from my mother. Emma's recital is tonight. We can't miss it. Be home tomorrow. That was 8 hours ago, and I scrolled through Emma's Instagram. There was Mom in the third row beaming. Dad had his phone up, recording. The caption read, "Best night ever. Love you, Mom and Dad," with hearts and dancing emoji. My incision burned. The morphine made everything fuzzy around the edges, but not fuzzy enough to dull the sharp clarity of this moment. I was 18 years old, lying in a hospital bed after emergency surgery, and my family had chosen to watch my 16-year-old sister dance for 3 minutes instead of being here. This wasn't new, but somehow it felt final. The woman appeared in my doorway just after midnight. I'd been drifting in and out of sleep, and for a moment I thought she might be a hallucination. Tall and elegant, with silver hair swept into a chignon and a Burberry coat that probably cost more than my parents' car. She looked like she'd walked out of a different world entirely. Juliana, her voice was soft, cultured. Juliana Chen? I blinked. Yes, I'm Victoria Chen, your grandmother. My father's mother, the one we never spoke about. The one whose name made my father's face go tight and angry whenever it came up, which was almost never. She stepped into the room, and I noticed she was carrying a small vase of orchids. I hope you don't mind. I saw your name on the emergency admissions board. I'm on the hospital board of directors. I wanted to check on you. Her eyes swept the empty room. Where's your family? Something in my chest cracked open. Maybe it was the morphine. Maybe it was the 8 hours of silence from the people who were supposed to love me. But I told her everything. I hadn't always been invisible. In the early years, the ones I barely remembered, there were photos of me as a chubby toddler, smiling at birthday parties, held on my mother's hip. But when I was 4, Emma was born, and something fundamental shifted in the gravitational pull of our family. Emma was beautiful, not pretty, not cute, beautiful in a way that made strangers stop on the street. Wide blue eyes, blonde curls, dimples that appeared when she smiled. She looked like a porcelain doll, and my parents treated her like one. I looked like my father's side of the family, dark hair, angular features, serious. Handsome, my grandmother Victoria said now, studying my face in the hospital room. Strong, you look like me. But to my parents, I was just ordinary. And ordinary didn't deserve the same investment as extraordinary. Emma's dance classes started when she was 6. First just ballet, then jazz, then contemporary, then hip-hop. 4 classes a week, then 6, then 8. Competitions every month. Costumes that cost hundreds of dollars. Private lessons with renowned choreographers. My parents spent at least $30,000 a year on Emma's dancing. I played violin. My school had a free orchestra program, and I'd shown some talent, enough that my music teacher said I should get private lessons. She's really gifted, Mrs. Morrison told my parents at a conference. With proper training, she could be something special. My mother had smiled politely. We'll think about it. They never thought about it. There wasn't room in the budget, they said, after Emma's dance expenses. But I knew that wasn't quite true because that same year they paid $5,000 for Emma to attend an elite summer dance intensive in New York. I kept playing violin in the school orchestra. I practiced during study hall, during lunch, late at night after everyone else was asleep. I got better through sheer determination, won the concertmaster position, received a superior rating at state competition. My parents came to exactly 1 concert in 4 years. They left at intermission because Emma had a dress rehearsal. High school was more of the same. My parents attended every single one of Emma's performances, and she had dozens between recitals and competitions and showcases. They took hundreds of photos, posted constantly on Facebook, told everyone who would listen about their incredibly talented daughter. I made honor roll every semester. I got a 15/20 on my SATs. I won a regional writing competition. I was accepted into 3 prestigious summer programs, all of which required tuition my parents said they couldn't afford. Emma went to dance camp in Los Angeles. It's for her future, my mother would say when I asked why there was always money for Emma but never for me. Dance is expensive, you understand, don't you? I understood that I didn't matter as much. I understood that my achievements were expected, boring, not worth celebrating. I understood that Emma's talent was special and mine was common, but I pretended not to understand. I smiled and nodded and told myself it would be different when I left for college, when I was on my own, when I didn't have to watch my parents' eyes light up for my sister and glaze over for me. The night that changed everything had started like any other. I'd woken up around 3 a.m. with stomach pain. By 5 a.m., I was vomiting. By 7 a.m., the pain was so severe I could barely walk. Emma had her dance recital that night, the spring showcase, her biggest performance of the year. She'd been practicing for months. Our parents had taken the day off work to help her prepare. I found my mother in the kitchen, packing snacks for Emma. "Mom," I said, doubled over. "Something's really wrong. It hurts so bad." She glanced at me, annoyed. "You're probably just getting your period." "No, it's different. It's on my right side and—" "Juliana, I don't have time for this right now. Take some Tylenol. We have to leave for Emma's dress rehearsal in an hour." "Mom, please." "Juliana," her voice was sharp. "Your sister's big night is tonight. Can you please not make everything about you for once?" I stared at her. The pain was radiating through my entire abdomen now, and I felt feverish, dizzy. "I think I need to go to the hospital." "Don't be dramatic, you're fine." They left 30 minutes later, my mother, my father, and Emma, chattering excitedly about the performance. I heard the car pull out of the driveway while I was in the bathroom, throwing up again. By noon, I knew something was seriously wrong. I called my mother. The call went to voicemail. I texted, "Mom, please come home. I need to go to the ER." She responded 2 hours later. "Can't leave. Emma needs us. You're 18. Call an Uber if you really need to go." So I did. Victoria listened to all of this without interrupting. When I finished, she was quiet for a long moment. "Your father," she said finally, "inherited his stubbornness from me. But he also inherited a trust fund, one that was meant to help provide for his children, plural. I've been sending him money for years to support both of you, $50,000 annually." I stared at her. "What?" "I assume from your reaction that you knew nothing about it." Her expression was grim. "I cut your father out of my life when he married your mother. I thought she was manipulative and cruel, and I told him so. He chose her over me. But I didn't want that decision to hurt you or your sister, so I set up the trust. I've been sending that money every year since you were born." My mind was reeling. $50,000 every year for 18 years. "Where did it go?" I whispered. Victoria's mouth thinned. "I think you know. Emma's dance classes, Emma's competitions, Emma's costumes and camps and private lessons. My father had been pocketing Victoria's money and spending it all on the golden child, while telling me there was nothing left for my violin lessons, my summer programs, my future. "I want to help you," Victoria said, and her voice was gentle now. "If you'll let me." The morphine was wearing off, the pain was coming back, but it was nothing compared to the rage building in my chest. 18 years of rage, finally given permission to exist. "What did you have in mind?" I asked. I didn't go home the next day, or the day after that. Victoria took me to her penthouse apartment on the Upper East Side. Yes, that Upper East Side in Manhattan, where I recovered in a guest room that was larger than my entire bedroom at home. My parents called twice. The first time, my mother asked when I'd be home because they needed me to drive Emma to her Monday dance class. The second time, my father asked if I could pick up dry cleaning on my way back. Neither of them asked how I was feeling. Neither of them apologized. I didn't answer. I let the calls go to voicemail, and I listened to them with Victoria sitting beside me. "I'm done," I told her after the second call. "I'm not going back." "Good," she said simply. Victoria wasn't just wealthy, she was wealth. The kind that comes with family names on hospital wings and museum galleries. Her late husband had been a real estate magnate. She sat on the boards of half a dozen major institutions. She had homes in Manhattan, the Hamptons, and Tuscany. And she wanted to give me everything my parents had denied me. "I'm 72 years old," she told me over breakfast the morning after I was discharged. We were sitting in her sunlit dining room overlooking Central Park. "I've spent the last 18 years watching from afar while your father ignored you and spoiled your sister. I'm not going to waste any more time. You're staying here. You're going to finish your senior year at a proper school. You're going to apply to the best colleges, and you're not going to worry about money ever again." "I have 2 months left of high school," I said. "It's almost June." "So you'll finish at Dalton. I've already made arrangements. You start Monday." It should have been overwhelming. It should have been terrifying. Instead, it felt like being pulled out of quicksand, like I could finally breathe. I spent that first week shopping for clothes that actually fit and looked nice, setting up my new room, and touring Dalton. I spent the evenings practicing on Victoria's Steinway grand piano. She didn't have a violin, but she had this, and my fingers remembered enough piano from childhood lessons to fumble through some pieces. "We'll get you a violin," Victoria said, watching me, "and a teacher, the best." By the second week, my parents had figured out I wasn't coming back. They showed up at Victoria's building on a Wednesday evening, demanding to see me. The doorman called up, and Victoria told him to send them away. They called my phone obsessively. Text after text. "Juliana, this is ridiculous. Come home right now. You can't just abandon your family. Emma is very upset about this. Your grandmother is poisoning you against us. If you don't come home by Friday, you're not welcome back." I blocked their numbers. What they didn't know, what I was carefully not telling them, was that Victoria and I were planning something much bigger than my escape. We were planning their reckoning. It started with the trust fund money. Victoria had her lawyers pull 18 years of bank records showing exactly where that $50,000 per year had gone. The paper trail was damning. Nearly 80% had gone directly to Emma's dance expenses, with the rest disappearing into my parents' personal accounts. There were charges for luxury vacations, new cars, home renovations, all funded by money that was supposed to be for both daughters. "This could be considered fraud," Victoria's lawyer said, looking over the documents. "The trust was explicitly established for both children's benefit." "I want them to know what we found," I said, "but I don't want to use it yet. I want to save it." Victoria smiled. It was a predatory expression that reminded me we were related. "What did you have in mind?" "I want to go to college," I said. "I want to become something. And then, when I'm successful and they realize they bet on the wrong daughter, I want them to understand exactly what they did. I want the proof ready for when they try to deny it." "Revenge is a dish best served cold," Victoria murmured. "I like the way you think." I finished my senior year at Dalton. It was surreal, going from my mediocre public school to one of the most elite private schools in the country, but I adapted quickly. My grades had always been excellent, and at Dalton, excellent was actually noticed and rewarded. My college counselor was amazed by my application. "With your scores and your story," she said, "you could go anywhere. Where are you thinking?" "Juilliard," I said, "for violin." She blinked. "That's extremely competitive. Are you sure you're prepared for that audition?" I had been practicing 6 hours a day with one of the best violin instructors in New York, a man Victoria had hired at $400 per lesson. I was more prepared than I'd ever been in my life. "I'm sure," I said. My parents found out about my Juilliard audition through Facebook. I'd posted a photo of myself outside the building, violin case in hand. My mother called from a number I didn't recognize. "Juilliard?" Her voice was shrill. "How can you afford Juilliard? Did your grandmother put you up to this?" "I'm paying for it myself," I lied smoothly, "with scholarship money." "You're being ridiculous. You're not good enough for Juilliard." "I guess we'll see," I said, and hung up. I got in. Not just in, I was accepted with a full merit scholarship and a stipend for living expenses. The acceptance letter came in March, and I cried when I read it, not because I was surprised, but because it was a validation of everything I'd worked for. Everything my parents had told me didn't matter. I didn't tell them, let them find out from Facebook. The real turning point came that summer. Emma had just turned 18, and my parents threw her an elaborate birthday party, the kind they'd never thrown for me. I saw the photos online, a rented venue, a professional DJ, 200 guests, a custom cake from the most expensive bakery in town. Victoria saw them too. How much do you think that cost? She asked, scrolling through the photos on her iPad. At least $20,000, I said. I'd been mentally cataloging the expenses. Maybe more. Interesting. She made a note on her phone. And your 18th birthday was when? 4 months ago. They took me to Olive Garden. I'd paid for my own meal. Right? Victoria's expression was cold. I think it's time to cut off the trust fund money. They've had their last check from me. The money stopped flowing in June. By July, I started hearing things through mutual acquaintances. My parents were suddenly very concerned about their finances. The luxury car Dad had just bought on credit? Those payments were suddenly difficult. The Hawaii vacation they'd booked for August? Canceled. Emma's upcoming dance season, which required thousands in competition fees? Suddenly impossible to afford. My mother reached out in late July with an email that started with, "We know we've had our differences," and ended with, "We're wondering if your grandmother might be willing to help the family during this difficult time." I deleted it without responding. August brought more. My father called, his voice tight. "Juliana, I think there's been a misunderstanding. Your grandmother stopped sending the trust money. I think you need to talk to her." "The trust was for me," I said quietly, "not for Emma's dance classes." Silence. "What are you talking about?" "I know about the $50,000 a year, Dad. I know where it went, all of it." He hung up on me. September, I moved into student housing at Juilliard. Victoria helped me set up my tiny dorm room, and before she left, she handed me a file folder. "The complete documentation," she said. "Every check I sent, every bank statement showing where it went, every email your father sent me over the years promising the money was being used for both girls' education and enrichment. Your lawyer, yes, you have a lawyer now, says this constitutes breach of fiduciary duty at minimum, possible fraud at maximum." "I still don't want to use it," I said. "Not yet." "When then?" "When they're desperate enough to acknowledge what they did. When they can't deny it anymore. When the truth will hurt them the most." Victoria hugged me, something my own mother had rarely done. "You're a Chen," she whispered, "through and through. Your father forgot what that means. You're going to remind him." Juilliard was brutal and beautiful. I practiced until my fingers bled, studied music theory until 3 a.m., performed in recitals that left me shaking with adrenaline and fear. I was surrounded by prodigies, people who'd had the best training since childhood, who'd had parents that supported them unconditionally. I had to work twice as hard as most of them because I'd started late, because I'd spent years teaching myself in school practice rooms instead of studying with masters. But I'd also developed a hunger they didn't have, a need to prove something that went beyond just being good. By sophomore year, I was performing solos. By junior year, I was winning competitions. By senior year, I had an agent and was booking professional gigs. And I documented all of it, every achievement, every award, every glowing review. I saved them carefully in a folder, knowing that one day I'd need them. My parents watched from a distance, still blocked, but finding ways to see through mutual friends. Through social media, through the occasional article in music magazines. I could feel them orbiting me, pulled by the gravity of my success, waiting for the right moment to try to claim me again. That moment came during my senior year when I won the Young Concert Artist International Auditions, one of the most prestigious competitions in classical music. The win came with a $50,000 prize, guaranteed recitals at major venues, and management representation. The New York Times wrote about it. NPR interviewed me. My face was suddenly everywhere in the classical music world, and my parents came crawling back. The letter arrived at Victoria's penthouse. They still didn't have my actual address, my mother's handwriting on the envelope. "Dear Juliana, we've been following your success, and we couldn't be more proud. We always knew you were talented. We're sorry we weren't able to be there for you during these years, but we want you to know we've always loved you and supported you. We hope we can rebuild our relationship. You'll always be our daughter, and nothing can change that. We have some things we need to discuss in person. There have been some financial difficulties lately, and the family could really use your help and guidance. Emma has had to give up dancing due to cost, and it's been very hard on her. Your father's business hasn't been doing well. We were hoping that, given your recent success, You might be willing to help us through this rough patch. After all, family is forever. Love always, Mom. I read it 3 times, feeling each sentence like a fresh betrayal. They'd ignored me for years, chosen Emma at every turn, left me alone in a hospital, told me I wasn't worth investing in. And now that I'd succeeded, despite them, not because of them, they wanted to claim credit and ask for money. Victoria read it over my shoulder. What are you going to do? I'm going to invite them to my recital, I said slowly. My debut at Carnegie Hall, it's in 6 weeks. I'm going to let them come, let them see what I built without them, and then I'm going to tell them exactly what I think of them. Just tell them? Victoria raised an eyebrow. That seems restrained. I'm not finished planning, I said, but I need to see them first. I need them to show me who they really are. One more time, so I'm sure. I sent them tickets, 3 seats, row F, center orchestra. I sent them via certified mail so I'd know they received them. The invitation was simple. I'd be honored if you'd attend my Carnegie Hall debut on March 15th. Please come to the reception afterward. They responded immediately. We wouldn't miss it for the world. So proud of you. The 6 weeks before the concert were a blur of preparation. This was my moment. My debut at one of the world's most famous concert halls. Performing pieces I'd worked on for years, pieces that showcased everything I'd learned, everything I'd become. But I was also preparing for something else. Victoria and I spent hours with her lawyers, going over the documentation, planning exactly what I would say and when. We contacted financial advisors, looked into my parents' current situation. Dire, it turned out. Dad's business was failing. They'd mortgaged the house twice. Emma had dropped out of college because they couldn't afford tuition. And prepared for every possible response. They're going to be angry, Victoria warned. They're going to say terrible things. I know, I said. I'm ready. The night of the concert, I stood backstage at Carnegie Hall looking out at the filling seats. The audience was already arriving. Music critics, industry professionals, music lovers, Victoria's society friends who'd come to support me. And there, in row F, I saw them. My mother wore a dress that was too tight and too young for her. My father looked uncomfortable in a suit that didn't quite fit. And Emma looked diminished somehow, no longer the glowing golden child, but just a tired 19-year-old in a cheap dress. They looked small, they looked ordinary. They looked like what they'd always been. People who'd made a terrible bet and lost. I performed the Brahms Violin Concerto, one of the most technically demanding pieces in the repertoire, one that required not just skill, but deep emotional maturity. I poured everything into it, every year of neglect, every moment of being overlooked, every ounce of rage and hurt and triumph. The violin sang in my hands and the audience was utterly silent, mesmerized. When I finished, the hall erupted. Standing ovation, flowers thrown on stage, critics scribbling frantically in their notebooks. I bowed and bowed again, and my eyes found my parents in the audience. They were standing and applauding, but their expressions were strange. Pride mixed with something else. Greed, maybe. Calculation. The reception was in the Rohatyn room, an elegant space with champagne and canapes and 100 people congratulating me. My parents found me within minutes. Juliana! My mother pushed through the crowd, arms outstretched for a hug I didn't return. That was incredible. We're so proud of you. You were always such a talented girl. Always? I said coolly. She didn't seem to hear the ice in my voice. We've been telling everyone about our daughter, the famous violinist. Emma, come say hi to your sister. Emma approached reluctantly. She looked tired, unhappy. Hey, she said quietly. You were really good. Thank you. My father clapped me on the shoulder like we were old friends. We need to talk, he said. Maybe somewhere private? There's a lot to catch up on, and we have some family matters to discuss. Family matters, I repeated. Of course, follow me. I led them to a small side room that Victoria had reserved for this exact purpose. She was already there, sitting in a wingback chair like a queen on a throne. My parents' faces fell when they saw her. Mother, my father said stiffly. David! Victoria's voice could have frozen the Hudson. You can say whatever you need to say in front of my grandmother, I told them. She's the only family I have. My mother's face hardened. Juliana, don't be dramatic. We're your parents. Are you? I set down my champagne glass. Tell me, what year did I graduate high school? Silence. What was my major in college? What was the name of my violin teacher in school? What's my favorite piece of music? More silence. My father's jaw was tight. You don't know, I said. You never knew because you never cared enough to learn. But you know everything about Emma, don't you? You could tell me every dance competition she won, every choreographer she worked with, every costume she wore. That's not fair, my mother said. Emma's dancing was expensive. It required our attention. It required $900,000 of attention, I said, and watched their faces go white. That's how much you spent on her over 18 years. I did the math, dance classes, costumes, competitions, private lessons, summer intensives, nearly $1 million. That's not, my father stammered. Plus another $900,000 from the trust fund my grandmother set up for both of us, I continued. The money she sent every year, the money you told her was being used for both daughters, the money that went entirely to Emma. I have the bank records, all of them. My mother's face went from white to red. That money was for the family. No, Victoria said, standing. That money was specifically for Juliana and Emma's education and enrichment. I have the trust documents. I have your signed agreements, David, promising you'd use it fairly for both children. And I have every bank statement showing you spent it all on one. Emma was gifted, my father exploded. She had real talent. She needed investment. And I didn't. I kept my voice level. I won Young Concert Artists International. I just performed at Carnegie Hall. I'm making more money at 22 than you've ever made in your entire life. How's that for return on investment? The room fell silent except for my mother's sharp breathing. Here's what's going to happen, I said. You're going to leave this reception, you're going to go home, and you're never going to contact me again. Juliana, please, my mother started. I know why you came, I said. I know you need money. I know Dad's business is failing, and you've mortgaged the house, and Emma had to drop out of college. I know you came here tonight hoping I'd forget the past and write you a check because family is forever. I pulled out my phone and opened my banking app. I showed them the balance, the trust fund Victoria had set up for me, the prize money from competitions, the payment from tonight's concert. It was a substantial number. I could help you, I said. I could pay off your mortgage. I could send Emma back to college. I could save Dad's business. I have the money. Hope flared in their eyes. But I'm not going to, I said flatly. Because you made your choice 18 years ago. You chose Emma. You chose her dance classes over my violin lessons, her competitions over my hospital visit, her future over mine. You had $1.5 million to invest in your two daughters, and you spent it all on one. So Emma is your investment. Emma is your retirement plan. Emma is your emergency fund. And I hope to God she's worth it. You're really going to abandon your family over money? My father said, his voice dangerous. After everything we did for you? Everything you did for me. I laughed, and it was bitter. You did nothing for me. You gave me a room and food, the bare minimum required by law. Everything else, everything I am, I built myself. And then, when I needed you most, when I was in a hospital bed after emergency surgery, you chose Emma's 3-minute dance performance over me. You told me to call an Uber, so consider this my Uber back out of your life. Your grandmother poisoned you against us, my mother hissed. We loved you. We always loved you. You loved the idea of me, I said. You loved having a well-behaved daughter who didn't ask for anything, who stayed quiet while you poured everything into Emma. But you never loved me enough to show up. Not for my concerts, not for my competitions, not for my hospital bed. I picked up the folder Victoria had prepared. This is every piece of documentation of the trust fund fraud. Bank statements, emails, the whole paper trail. My lawyers have copies. If you ever contact me again, if you try to claim me in public, if you speak to the press about me, if you show up at my performances, I'll give this to a judge and sue you for every penny you stole from me, with interest. My father's face went purple. You wouldn't dare. Try me, I said. I've learned a lot from Victoria, family loyalty, for instance. The Chens don't forget betrayal, and they don't forgive it either. You taught me that when you cut her out of your life. Now I'm cutting you out of mine. Emma was crying silently, mascara running down her face. For a moment, I almost felt sorry for her. She'd been a child, too, caught in the middle of our parents' favoritism, twisted into a golden idol she never asked to become. Emma, I said more gently, I'm sorry they did this to you. I'm sorry they made their love conditional on your talent. I'm sorry they spent so much money on you that now you're drowning in their expectations, but that's not my problem to fix. They chose to build their entire world around you. Let them live in it. I walked to the door. Victoria followed. You're making a mistake, my mother called after me. You'll regret this. We're your family. I paused at the threshold. No, I said, looking back at them one last time. Victoria is my family. She's the one who showed up when I needed her. She's the one who invested in me when no one else would. She's the one who loved me without conditions. You're just the people who failed me for 18 years. I closed the door on their protests and walked back into the reception, back into my new life, back into the world I'd built without them. The aftermath was both more and less dramatic than I expected. My parents tried to contact me 17 times in the week after Carnegie Hall. Calls, emails, texts from new numbers, even a letter sent to Victoria's apartment. I blocked and deleted everyone without reading them. Victoria's lawyers sent a cease and desist letter. The contact stopped. I heard through mutual acquaintances what happened next. My parents tried to sue Victoria for the trust fund money, claiming she'd manipulated me and stolen their daughter. The lawsuit was dismissed within weeks once Victoria's lawyers presented the documentation. The judge apparently said something about my parents being fortunate not to face criminal fraud charges. My father's business collapsed completely by June. They had to sell the house and move into a 2-bedroom apartment across town. Emma got a job at a retail store, giving up on college entirely. My mother went back to work as a receptionist after 15 years of being a stay-at-home mom. I didn't feel good about their struggles exactly, but I didn't feel guilty either. They'd had $1.5 million to invest in their family, and they'd gambled it all on the wrong daughter. That wasn't my fault. My career, meanwhile, caught fire. The Carnegie Hall performance led to more bookings. Boston, Chicago, Los Angeles, London, Paris. I recorded my first album with Deutsche Grammophon, one of the most prestigious classical labels in the world. I was invited to play with major orchestras. Music critics called me the most exciting young violinist in a generation. I bought an apartment in Manhattan with Victoria's help. A beautiful 2-bedroom with huge windows and space for all my music. I filled it with my things, my books, my awards. I hung photos of Victoria and me at my performances. I created a home that felt like mine. Victoria and I had dinner every Sunday, a tradition we started my first year at Juilliard and never stopped. We talked about music, about art, about her late husband and her years in society. She told me stories about my father as a child, before he'd become bitter and small. He was a good boy, she said one evening over wine and pasta. Sensitive, creative. But your mother, she wanted things. Status, money, a perfect life with perfect children who could be shown off. She twisted him, made him think that love was something you earned through achievement, through being special. And he forgot how to love you just for being you. Do you ever regret cutting him off? I asked. Every day, she admitted, but I don't regret finding you. You're the best thing in my life, Juliana. You're the daughter I should have had. I squeezed her hand, unable to speak past the lump in my throat. 2 years after Carnegie Hall, I was 24 and playing a concert series in Vienna. I was in my hotel room when I got an email from an address I didn't recognize. The subject line read, "Please read this." I almost deleted it, but something made me open it. Juliana, this is Emma. I got this email address from your management company. I know you don't want to hear from me or mom and dad, and I understand why, but I wanted to tell you something. I quit dancing, not because of money, but because I hated it. I've hated it for years. Maybe I always hated it. I was good at it, so mom and dad made it my whole life. And I couldn't figure out how to tell them I wanted to do something else, anything else. I'm in community college now, studying graphic design. It turns out I'm pretty good at art. Who knew? Mom and dad are disappointed, of course. I'm not special anymore. I'm not their golden child. I'm just me, working retail and taking night classes and trying to figure out who I am when I'm not performing for them. I get it now, why you left. why you won't talk to them. They loved me for what I could do, not for who I was. And when I stopped doing it, the love kind of evaporated. It's lonely. I'm not asking for anything. I just wanted you to know that I'm sorry for all of it, for being the favorite, for not speaking up when they ignored you, for getting everything while you got nothing. You were right about all of it. I hope Vienna's beautiful. I hope you're happy. Emma, I read the email 3 times. Then I closed my laptop and looked out at the Vienna skyline, at the beautiful old city glowing in the afternoon light. I thought about Emma at 19, lost and struggling, realizing too late that being the golden child was its own kind of prison. I thought about her working at a mall, taking night classes, discovering her own dreams years after she should have been allowed to have them. I felt sad. For her, for the childhood she'd lost to our parents' obsession, for the sister relationship we might have had if they hadn't poisoned it with their favoritism. But I didn't write back. Not then. That night, I performed Vivaldi's Summer with the Vienna Philharmonic. The piece is intense, stormy, full of rage and passion, and eventually, resolution. I thought about Emma while I played, about families and forgiveness and the cost of ambition. The violins sang and the audience listened, and when I finished, they roared their approval. After the concert, I sat in my dressing room and opened my laptop. I started typing. Emma, thank you for your email. I'm glad you're finding your own path, even if it's later than it should have been. I'm not ready to have a relationship with you yet. Maybe someday. But right now, I'm building a life that doesn't include the family that hurt me, and I need to protect that. I hope your graphic design classes go well. I hope you find something you love as much as I love music. I hope you learn to be yourself without an audience. Take care of yourself, Juliana. I sent it before I could second-guess myself. Then I closed the laptop and went to meet Victoria for a late dinner at a restaurant overlooking the Danube. You look peaceful, she said, studying my face over schnitzel and wine. I am, I said. And I meant it. The years that followed were the best of my life. I turned 25, then 26, then 27. I played in concert halls around the world. I won awards. I collaborated with other musicians, experimented with contemporary pieces, stretched myself artistically. I fell in love with a cellist named Marcus, a quiet, brilliant man who understood the dedication required by classical music, who supported my ambitions and challenged me to grow. We moved in together, combining our lives and our music into something beautiful. Victoria's health began to decline when I was 28. Nothing dramatic, just the slow fade of age. She was 86, and her body was tired. We spent more time together, more Sunday dinners, more quiet afternoons in her apartment talking about life and art and meaning. I'm proud of you, she told me one Sunday, her hand thin and fragile in mine. Not because you're successful, though you are, but because you're happy. Because you built a life on your own terms. Because you're kind despite everything they did to you. I learned from the best, I said, kissing her forehead. She died peacefully in her sleep 3 weeks later. I played at her funeral, the same Brahms concerto I'd performed at Carnegie Hall all those years ago. I cried through the entire piece, but I didn't stop playing. Victoria would have wanted me to finish. She left me everything. The penthouse, the house in the Hamptons, her investment portfolio, her seat on various boards. Her will was simple, to my beloved granddaughter Juliana, who became the daughter I always wanted. Use this to build the life you deserve. I was 30 years old and wealthier than I'd ever imagined. But what I felt wasn't triumph or satisfaction. What I felt was grief for the woman who'd saved me, who'd loved me unconditionally, who'd shown me what family was supposed to be. My parents found out about Victoria's death from the obituary. They showed up at the funeral, standing at the back of the church. I saw them, but didn't acknowledge them. Security escorted them out when they tried to approach me at the reception. They tried to contest the will, claiming undue influence. Their lawyer withdrew from the case after 2 weeks, probably after realizing how well documented Victoria's relationship with me had been. The case went nowhere. 3 years later, I was 33. I had just finished a recording session when my manager called with unexpected news. Emma Chen is trying to reach you, she said. She says it's urgent. Something about your father. My first instinct was to say no, but something, maybe the memory of Emma's email from years ago, maybe just curiosity, made me pause. Give me her number, I said. I called from the privacy of my apartment. Emma answered on the first ring. Juliana. Her voice was older, steadier than the last time I'd heard it. Thank you for calling. What's wrong with Dad? Heart attack. He's in the hospital. He's not going to make it. I felt nothing. No surge of grief, no panic, not even satisfaction. Just emptiness where concern should have been. I'm sorry, I said, and meant it for Emma's sake, not his. He's asking for you, Emma said quietly. He wants to see you before he dies. No. Juliana, please. Emma, I haven't spoken to him in 15 years. I don't have anything to say to him now. He wants to apologize. I laughed, bitter. 15 years too late. He can apologize to whoever's listening on the other side. He's our father, Emma said, and her voice broke. He's dying. He stopped being my father the day he chose your dance class over my hospital bed, I said. I'm sorry you're losing him. I really am. But I lost him a long time ago. I hung up before she could respond. My father died 2 days later. I didn't attend the funeral. I sent flowers with a card that read simply, "For Emma and her loss." Emma called after the funeral, leaving a voicemail I listened to but didn't return. I understand why you didn't come, she said, her voice thick with tears. I do, but I wanted you to know that at the end, he talked about you. He said he was sorry. He said he made a mistake, choosing me over you, spending all that money on me. He said he thought I was going to be his legacy, and he forgot that you were his daughter first. He died knowing he was wrong. I saved the voicemail, not because it changed anything, but because it was proof. Proof that I'd been right. Proof that the neglect had been real. Proof that the favoritism had been as stark as I remembered. Validation, even posthumous, mattered. My mother reached out 6 months later, a letter sent to my management office. Juliana, your father is gone. Emma is struggling to make ends meet. I'm alone and aging. We made mistakes. We see that now. But you're thriving, successful, wealthy beyond measure. Is it too much to ask for some help? For some forgiveness? We're family. Don't we deserve a second chance? Please, Mama, I wrote back. One sentence on expensive stationery, you had your chance. You chose to spend it on Emma. I never heard from her again, and now I'm 35. I've been performing professionally for over a decade. I've played in every major concert hall in the world. I've recorded 6 albums. I've won every major competition and award in classical music. I've been featured in documentaries, profiled in magazines, interviewed on television. I'm married to Marcus. We have a beautiful home filled with music and light and love. We're talking about adopting, about building a family where love isn't conditional and attention isn't a commodity to be earned. Sometimes I think about my parents and Emma. I wonder if my mother still lives in that small apartment. I wonder if Emma ever finished her degree, if she found happiness in graphic design, if she ever forgave our parents for what they did to both of us. But I don't wonder enough to reach out. That door closed the night I walked out of Carnegie Hall, and I have no desire to reopen it. People sometimes ask me about my family, interviewers, curious colleagues, new friends. I have a practiced answer. I was raised by my grandmother. She was everything to me. It's not a lie. Victoria was everything. Mentor, cheerleader, protector, family. She saw me when no one else did. She invested in me when everyone else invested elsewhere. She loved me unconditionally when everyone else's love came with requirements. I keep a photo of us on my piano. Victoria and me at my Juilliard graduation. Both of us beaming, her hand on my shoulder. It's my favorite photo in the world. It reminds me that family isn't blood. Family is choice. Family is showing up. Family is love without conditions. Last month, I performed with the New York Philharmonic at Lincoln Center. The concert was sold out, 1,500 people filling the hall. I played the Tchaikovsky Violin Concerto, one of the most beloved pieces in the repertoire, and the audience was spellbound. During the final movement, during the virtuosic ending, I caught a glimpse of someone in the audience who looked like Emma. Older, thinner, sadder. But I couldn't be sure, and I didn't let myself look again. I focused on the music, on the gorgeous difficulty of Tchaikovsky's demands, on the pure joy of performing at this level. The audience gave me a standing ovation that lasted 5 minutes. People were crying. Critics in the audience were already typing glowing reviews on their phones. My manager was grinning from the wings, probably calculating how much my fee would increase after this. I bowed and bowed again, accepting flowers, soaking in the applause. And I thought about the girl I used to be, the one who practiced violin in an empty practice room, who taught herself because no one would pay for lessons, who lay in a hospital bed alone while her family watched her sister dance. That girl would never have believed this moment was possible. She would never have imagined Carnegie Hall, international tours, a career beyond her wildest dreams. She would never have believed that someone, Victoria, would love her enough to give her a chance. But she would have believed in the revenge. She would have understood the satisfaction of proving everyone wrong, of succeeding despite being overlooked, of becoming extraordinary while being told she was ordinary. I never came home again after that hospital visit, and it was the best decision I ever made. Backstage after the Lincoln Center concert, my phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. That was beautiful. You've become everything they said you couldn't be. I'm happy for you. Emma. I stared at the message for a long moment. Then I typed back, "Thank you. I hope you found your own path too." 3 dots appeared, then disappeared, then appeared again. Finally, I'm trying. Some paths take longer to find than others. Keep trying, I wrote. It's never too late. It wasn't forgiveness exactly. It wasn't reconciliation. But it was something. An acknowledgement that we'd both been damaged by the same people. That we'd both had to find our way out of their twisted priorities. Maybe that was enough. I put my phone away and walked out to the reception, where Marcus was waiting with champagne and a proud smile. The critics were already circling, wanting quotes for their reviews. My manager was fielding calls from venues wanting to book me. Friends and colleagues were congratulating me, celebrating another triumph. This was my life now. This was what I'd built from nothing, from neglect, from that moment of clarity in a hospital bed when I realized I deserved better. They chose her dance class over my hospital visit. I never came home again, and I've never been happier.